We live in an invisible prison, built not with walls, but with glances. From an early age, we are taught to seek approval, good grades, good manners, good choices, but according to whom? The need to be accepted embeds itself into our bones, and without realizing it, we begin to shape our lives to fit the expectations of others. Carl Jung once said, "What we deny in ourselves enslaves us." And what is this constant pursuit of approval, if not the silent denial of our true essence? When we mold our actions to please others, we distance ourselves from who we are and become enemies of our own soul. But there is a hidden pain in this process, a pain that isn't screamed but echoes in moments of solitude when the mask falls and only emptiness remains, the absence of oneself. It is at this point that many wonder, why do I feel so lost, even after doing everything right? The answer is bitter, but liberating, because doing everything right was never about you. It was about them. Your life became a mirror, reflecting expectations that were never truly yours. And there is no greater betrayal than abandoning yourself to be loved. Today I want to guide you to a more intimate place, the sacred territory, where external approval dissolves and true acceptance, your own, begins to bloom. It will hurt. It will be uncomfortable. But that is where freedom lives. It all begins subtly. A smile of approval received for behaving as expected. A compliment for being good, quiet, proper. From a young age, we learn that love and acceptance come at a cost, the renunciation of parts of ourselves. The child we once were, vibrant and authentic, discovers that certain emotions are unacceptable, certain behaviors inconvenient. So we learn to hide, to mold, to cut away pieces of our soul to fit the tight mold of societal expectations. What was natural becomes conditioned. The free laughter turns into a controlled smile. Spontaneity becomes caution. Without noticing, we drift away from our essence, and worse, we begin to believe this is normal, that this is how it should be. Epictetus said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that they happen as they do, and you will be serene." But growing up constantly seeking others' approving glances, we become slaves to circumstances, prisoners of others' opinions. Everything we do, think, or feel must pass through an invisible filter. Will they accept me like this? It's a silent, devastating cycle. The need for approval infiltrates every decision, the profession we choose, the relationships we maintain, the clothes we wear, even the tone of our voice. Little by little, the burden of living for others suffocates who we truly are. Society, with its deafening voice, exalts the woman who adapts, who sacrifices her dreams, who silences her pain to maintain harmony. And we, conditioned to seek belonging, learn to applaud our own submission. We applaud what makes us ill. Every renunciation, every forced concession distances us further from the life we could live. The bars are not visible, but they are as real as the weight we carry trying to sustain an idealized version of ourselves. Each time we say yes when our soul screams no, each time we smile while our heart bleeds, we raise another wall between who we are and who we show to the world. It is not others who imprison us. It is we ourselves, in an unconscious act of seeking acceptance at any cost. But the cost is high. Internal fragmentation, a sense of emptiness, the loss of spontaneity, disconnection from what is most vital in us. The pursuit of approval, though disguised as virtue, is a survival strategy that becomes a prison. And the more we try to please, the more inadequate we feel. Perfection in the eyes of others is imperfection in the eyes of our soul. And the price we pay is our very existence, unlived. There is a hidden cost we pay every time we drift away from who we are to be accepted. This cost does not appear immediately. It accumulates silently, like drops that, over time, carved stone. At first it seems harmless, a slight discomfort, a vague sense of inadequacy, but as the years pass, this disconnection grows, seeps into the cracks of the soul, and turns into a deep emptiness, a sense that we are living a life that is not truly ours. Carl Jung warned, "The person who looks outside dreams, the one who looks inside awakens." But how can we look inward when we were taught to seek validation from the outside? The habit of pleasing teaches us to ignore our own desires, to silence our intuition, to doubt our inner voice. We become experts in listening to others, but strangers to ourselves. And this exacts a silent price: shallow relationships, emotional exhaustion, a fatigue that no sleep can heal. We lose the sparkle in our eyes, the strength in our voice, the passion for life. The impact extends to our most intimate choices, relationships we accept out of fear of loneliness, jobs we keep out of fear of disapproval, silences we maintain out of fear of judgment. Life becomes full of what-ifs. What if I disappoint them? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? Questions that sabotage every step towards authenticity. Gradually, we stop living and start merely existing. We survive in a sea of concessions, drifting in lukewarm waters where fear sets the course. And perhaps the highest cost is invisible even to us, the forgetting of who we truly are. With every self-renunciation, every mask put on, a piece of our real identity fades away, until one day we look in the mirror and barely recognize the woman staring back. A woman exhausted from carrying burdens that were never hers, a woman starving to rediscover herself but not knowing where to begin. There is only one way back: confrontation. The painful yet liberating process of unlearning the need for approval, silencing the external noise and listening, perhaps for the first time in a long time, to the whisper of our own soul. This is the invitation life extends to all of us, to abandon the gilded cage of acceptance and dare to be who we truly are. The acceptance we seek externally is a mirage. From a distance, it seems promising, almost real. But the closer we get, the more it fades. Because what others approve of is not who we are, but the mask we wear to please them. And so, even surrounded by praise, we feel alone. Even seemingly accepted, we are invisible, not due to a lack of people, but a lack of authenticity. Seneca said, "It is a great consolation to have the approval of one's own conscience." Yet we were conditioned to ignore this quiet approval and seek the loud applause from others. The mask becomes heavy, suffocating. Wearing it demands energy, vigilance, constant effort to prevent our imperfections, fears, and truths from slipping through. We live as actresses in an endless theater, trading authenticity for superficial acceptance. The problem is that every mask has a price. It distances us from others, but most importantly, from ourselves. In moments of silence, when no one is watching, we feel the unbearable weight of not being able to be who we really are. The soul, deprived of freedom, begins to sicken. Anxiety, unexplained sadness, a chronic sense of inadequacy, all symptoms of a life lived in the shadow of oneself. And why do we keep up this theater? Because we were made to believe that to be loved, we must be perfect, irreproachable, pleasing. We forget that true love, whether from others or ourselves, is not born from perfection, but from vulnerability. It is not the mask that earns genuine affection, but the courage to show our flaws, our raw truths, our unedited humanity. The illusion of external acceptance keeps us captive to impossible expectations. But freedom begins the moment we dare to drop the mask. When we realize that true acceptance cannot be bought or earned, it must be built from within. Only those who deeply accept themselves can live a life that echoes authenticity and awakens real connections. Detaching from the need for approval is a process of death and rebirth. The death of a fabricated identity, the rebirth of a forgotten essence. It is not an easy path. It takes courage to descend into the depths of our own soul and face everything buried beneath the demands of the world. The rejected parts, the abandoned dreams, the denied emotions, everything we buried to be accepted. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And awakening is painful. It means letting go of the false safety of others' approval to embrace the uncertainty of authenticity. It means being misunderstood, criticized, perhaps even rejected. But the true tragedy is not being rejected by others, it is being rejected by oneself. Reclaiming one's soul is an act of sacred rebellion. This path begins in silence, a moment of pause where we finally ask ourselves, who am I beyond the expectations projected onto me? The answer does not come immediately. It reveals itself, slowly, as we learn to listen to ourselves with kindness, without censorship, without haste. In abandoning the desire to please, the possibility of being begins to bloom. It is in the space of solitude that we rediscover ourselves, not in bitter loneliness, but in fertile solitude, where the soul has room to breathe. There, far from external noise, we recognize the woman we were taught to hide, and little by little, with patience and tenderness, we learn to accept her, imperfect, vulnerable, whole. Reconciliation with oneself is not a one-time event but a daily commitment, a silent pact to honor our truth, even if it costs disapproving glances, even if it makes us strangers to those unprepared for authenticity. But within this pact lies a freedom that cannot be taken away, the freedom to be who we are, without masks, without fear, without concessions. When a woman renounces the need for approval, something extraordinary happens. What once seemed like weakness reveals itself as her greatest strength. She is no longer driven by the invisible currents of expectations and begins to sail with her own rudder. She becomes not a prisoner of others' glances, but the master of her destiny. Every step she takes is a silent manifesto of courage, the courage to be who she is, to live according to her inner truth, no longer asking permission to exist. Nietzsche said, "Become who you are." And this journey, arduous and solitary at times, transforms the woman who walks it. Her eyes gain a different depth, no longer the anxious gleam of seeking approval, but the serene light of someone who is enough for herself. Her presence changes, no longer shaped by the need to please, but guided by truth. Such a woman unsettles, inspires, frightens, and enchants. Because authentic freedom is magnetic and at the same time unsettling, she understands that being rejected is a small price compared to losing herself. She prefers the discomfort of criticism to the void of self-denial. She knows she doesn't need to be understood by everyone because those connected to their essence attract those who also seek to live from the soul, not from appearances. Relationships change, it's true. Many leave. But those who stay for who she truly is, not for the image she used to represent. This woman no longer needs to shout to be heard. Her mere existence is a statement, a living affirmation that inner freedom is possible, that it is possible to love without self-erasure, to work without emotional prostitution, to live without begging for acceptance. She becomes a silent reference, a beacon for other women still groping in the darkness of others' approval. Renouncing external approval is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of love, the deepest and most transformative we can offer ourselves. And from that love, a new woman is born. Whole, firm, vibrant, unshaken by the winds of criticism and the storms of rejection. A woman who is finally free. The most precious freedom is not the one granted by others. It is the one that is born when we stop asking for permission to be who we are. No one can give it, and therefore no one can take it away. This freedom, won through pain and silence, is not loud. It is serene, almost invisible to eyes accustomed to social performance, but inside it burns like sacred fire, illuminating every gesture, every choice, every word. Seneca said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future." And there is no greater anxious dependence than the need to be accepted, recognized, validated. When we free ourselves from this anchor, we finally begin to live in the present. We begin to act not to impress, but to express. Life stops being a performance and becomes a dance, free, spontaneous, authentic. This freedom is revolutionary because it restores something stolen from us, the right to be imperfect, contradictory human. The right to change our minds, to make mistakes without fear, to not please, to not fit into the tight molds of society and yet feel whole. A free woman is not one who never feels fear. She is one who feels it and still remains true to herself. And this fidelity has immense power. It transforms the way we love, work, exist. There is no longer a separation between who we are inside and what we show outside. The mask falls, and in its place appears the real face, the one that carries scars, stories, marks of a life lived with courage. And it is in this face that the rarest beauty shines, the beauty of truth. In the end, we discover that we were not made to be loved by everyone. We were made to be whole, to live in peace with our conscience, to honor the silent call of our soul. And when we finally answer that call, we experience a freedom so deep that no criticism, no rejection, no abandonment can destroy. It is the freedom to simply be who we are. Now, close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, who would you be if you no longer feared disappointing anyone but yourself? If this reflection touched your heart, share in the comments which mask are you ready to let fall. Your vulnerability might be the key to freeing other women too,